Hello guys, my name is Pascal, a student at Vouch Initiative International, and today I'm going to be presenting on a project. We're going to be creating a repository gallery website using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. Now, a little bit about the website. It's going to be a single page web application using HTML, CSS and JavaScript that will have a list of repositories on our GitHub page, all the projects we have worked on, and it's going to arrange them in a grid and display data about it. So to begin the project, I have my workspace already built here. I have a simple folder called repo gallery with my index.js, index.html and css. Don't worry about the other folders here. I'll get to them in a second. So in my index.js, I have some simple boilerplate code that you can write out, copy yourself, and then I have a script link here for my icons. If you want the same icons in your web page, you can go to fontawesome.com and log in. Then you create a new kit, and then you get the code like this. I've already created a kit, so I already have the code. Then the next thing I want to do is set up Tailwind CSS for my CSS. So to add Tailwind CSS to the project, we have to type in our command line npm init and then flag y. And what that to do is that it will set up initialize a Node project, and to do this you have to have a basic understanding of Node.js and npm. Now I've already done that, that's why I have my package.json here. And then in the Tailwind CSS documentations, we also have some code here. Now we just copy and paste this into the command line, the first one, and then enter, and then it will install all the things you need for Tailwind CSS. I already have that over here and here. And then the next thing we do is we initialize Tailwind CSS, copy this and paste it here. And after a while it will initialize our Tailwind CSS. Then the next thing we do is we copy the code here, and after our Tailwind CSS config file has been generated, we just open it and paste it there. Then we copy this text over here, and then in our code editor I want to paste the code into style.css, and then the last thing we do is we copy this, go back to our code editor, and then paste it here. I'm going to modify this a little bit because I do not have src/input.css, but I have a style.css, so I'll just change that to ./style.css, and then the output will still be the same, and then we hit enter. Now what this is going to do is it's going to look for changes inside our code, and every time we make a change it will update the CSS, and it will also generate this folder and file that we can put into our HTML and get our style from it. Now how Tailwind CSS works is we do not write our CSS directly inside the style sheet folder file, but we instead write utility classes. That will make things easier for me and in creating the website later. So now the last thing I want to do for the Tailwind CSS is I want to add a link to the CSS file here. So it will be this for distribution, then output.css. And now to test it out, I'll just write a simple class with a background of gray 900 and width of full screen and a full screen height too. So then I click go live. If you don't have this here, that means you need to install the HTML previewer extension for VS Code, which will be here, live server. If you install the extension, then you have this over here. Just click it and then it will open our web page inside our browser. Just open and inspect here. But our Tailwind CSS is not working, so you will just close that and then rerun it to see whether it comes back. And I also have to change the SRC over here. Remove that. Let me restart it again. And we have an error. Okay, let me just fix that. I'll create the folder here called SRC. And then move my style.css into that. And then rename that input.css. I copy the code here, paste it into my terminal. And then we also have to fix the Tailwind config. So you go back to the Tailwind config. Select all and paste that. And also I'm going to move my HTML and JavaScript into the SRC folder, so everything will work fluently. Okay, so now the Tailwind CSS should work properly. I will go to localhost 5500, then /src. Then we'll have our web page. Then we can get to editing it. Okay, so now first thing I want inside the body is an h1 tag to h1 tab, and then write repo gallery, and then for the class add the text 6XL. I'll just change the font size. In the body, we'll add a flex column and items center. Now to rewire the style, so change that. Now everything should work properly. Then the next thing we are going to add is a div with class container. And I also make the text white, so text white. And then in the container, I'm going to add a little more utility class. I'll add a grid with a gap of 1 or 2. And then the next, inside the grid, I'm going to add a card. So then another div padding, rounded, medium, and then the color is going to be gray -800. Then I add a shadow. Then inside the card, we just add a card class to that. And then add an anchor tag. I'll leave this empty for now. Then inside here I'll write some lorem ipsum. Now at the bottom we'll just add a paragraph tag with small Lorem Ipsum. And then at the bottom, let's see what we have there. We have the fork icon with the amount of forks, the star icon with the amount of stars. So I go to font also, and I click the search icon here. And I search for the icon I want. So let's say fork. Or I just look for something else to replace it. So let's go for the download. Go for this icon. Or something else. Okay, we go for this icon, code branch, and then we just copy this here. And then we go back to our code, and then we create a div. Then we paste the icon here, and then also use this for the star. And the second thing I want to do is add another div to separate each of the icons in the text. Move that up, and then under here we add a paragraph tag, a span, and that will contain the number of forks. So let's say 190, and then we do the same thing here, but instead we replace the icons. So just cut that and paste it here. Okay, then we can add some utility classes to make that look better. Change the color. Change that for the card. Change it to blue. And that should make it look better. Then for the H1, the text is already white. I'll add some margin to the bottom or the top of the grid. Empty. Make that 5. And then the anchor tag, we add a class text white, and then same thing for the paragraph tag. And these things here, the icon and the spans. Then we check it out in our web page. That was starting to look better already. And then the divs here, we then add a class of flex to them. So flex, and that will align it horizontally. then after the icons we add a margin to the right hand side of 2, then R2. And then we also align items to the center. Okay, then the div containing both of them, just copy this and paste. And instead we add justify between. Now give some space between them, like so. Or instead we add a margin. And then for the cards, we change the width of the card and wrap it around the content to max. And then the grid here, we are going to add a number of columns. Just duplicate this to see how it looks. Or if you want to know how to use grid inside Tailwind CSS, just search grid. I'll give you some examples here. So it's grid rows -5 for GRID. That should change it. columns. Okay, so now we are done with how it looks. So the next thing we want to do is we want to take each of the cards and put it into JavaScript and then edit the way the page looks with the data from GitHub API. So let me make a few changes over here. Add the margin to the bottom of 2. See how that looks. Remove this. And now we are done with that. You can just select all this and cut it. Then we move on to the JavaScript. Now over here we want to access the data from our GitHub API. So you write fetch the bracket, then the URL, so api.github.com, then slash the username, so Pascal -DA-CREATOR, then slash repos, and then next line we write dot then response equals response.json, and then dot then data equals console.log data. So you just want to log what you get to the console here. So if we open our inspector and go to console, we should see all the data from our GitHub. Let me refresh this. Select all this and copy it instead. Then paste it into our code. Okay, so for this work I have to link it to my JavaScript. So script src, then ./index.js. Now that should log it to our console. Refresh this. Okay, we get all the data from our GitHub API, which is the same as this. So now what I want to get from each repository, I want to get the name of the repository, then the full name. The full name is, okay, not the full name, the HTML URL. So that will be the link to the repository. We'll put that in our anchor tag. Then the description. And then we also want the fork. If the fork is false, then we just write 0. And then we also want Stargazer, which is this Stargazer account. Okay, so we move to writing the code for that. So what I want to do is I want to save the data into a variable. So var repo underscore data equals an empty object, and then over here I assign the repo data, the data from the API to the repo data. So repo underscore data equals data. Now if I go down here and console.log the repo data, I would get the same thing over here. Okay, statement assign your make some changes. Okay. Write that right here. And move this up there. Now we should get the same result. Now after we do this, we want to get each repository inside the API written. So you can see that our response is a list. So to get all the items inside, we can say okay, console.log, and then into bracket, okay, write the follow. So for bracket, yes, index equals 0 colon length is equal to repo data.length, and then we add 1, and then inside the follow we put this. And then instead of repo data, we write repo data, then square braces, then index. Then we should get each item instead of the entire object. Then if you want to get the name, we just attach dot name, copy this, paste, dot description, and then all the other things we want from it. So HTML URL, and we also want, we already have the description, Stargaze account, and fork count. Now I think that's all we are going to be needing. Okay, so we should get all the data from each of them with the render reloads. We get all the data. We have the name, the description, the URL, fork count, and then the Stargaze account and the fork count, then next repository, and so on. Okay, now what I want to do here for the description is I want to write a simple code so we don't get null for the description if it doesn't have a description. So we change that to add the pipe symbol twice. Or then just type no description, and that will change it from null to no description if it does not have a description. Now the next thing we want to do is we create a variable here at the top called HTML underscore template and then I write a multi-line string, and then inside here I paste the HTML I copied. Over here I want to paste the HTML I copied. So Windows V, and then I paste this. Okay, I'll change this to the PlayStation. Then over here I replace the data with the data I want with the request. So I copy this, paste it over here. The description, copy this, paste it here. Copy this and then paste it at the href. Start this account, copy this and paste it here. And then for the forks, I copy this and paste it there. Now that we are done with this, we can just inject this into our HTML every time we get the response. So to inject it, I just write document dot get element by tag name. Or by ID. Then the ID is going to be the ID for the grid. So we go to the HTML here, and then at the grid we add an ID of grid. And then back in our JS we just type in grid over here, the ID. And then we append the HTML template to it. Okay, so then that should give us something like this. Now this is not what we want, so we have to make a little changes. Now, because you want to access the data inside the template literal, we have to put the data into curly braces and then add the $sign behind it. That will allow us to access it from the JavaScript and not just print it out. That's all the data. And then I also have made a mistake here, so I just put this tag. Then make the changes. take care of that. Which one has not been notified? Okay, remove this line. And I want to create this variable inside the fetch, or it's not to give me that error message. Indent that. Index is not defined. Into the loop, and now that should take care of the error message. Refresh this. Then we should get our data from the GitHub API. Now this is what it looks like. If you close it, you have a better look. And this is all the repository from my GitHub. Now the final thing I want to do about it is make it responsive, because if I scale this down, it doesn't look all that nice. So last thing we do is, in the HTML, we add MD behind this, and then we copy this, and at the back we change the grade columns to 2, and that should take care of that. So it's 2 grades when it's smaller. Refresh. And then 3 grades when it's larger. And that is it for this project. Bye.